Do you actually believe that anybody in TPUSA or Erica Kirk facilitated the murder of Charlie Kirk?
I'm not going to get myself into a legal pickle here.
You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so Candace Owens and Andrew Wilson ended up doing this debate. She got paid $300,000 by Andrew Wilson, and I think like some other people, some crowdfunding, as well as Candace speculated that TPUSA put some money up for them to essentially have this conversation about the death of Charlie Kirk. Candace Owens has her theories, thinking that it's Israel tied in with the French government and other kind of nebulous conspiracies. Andrew Wilson is arguing for the official narrative on the murder. So these are essentially two grifters, one of which, Candace, being much more skilled, having much longer been in this game of being on camera, arguing about these things. So Andrew Wilson, fancies himself as a real expert of that and is pretty good with his debate tactics, and I think was mostly on the correct side of this debate. But Candace Owens, just as I predicted, came across better, came across smoother, also seemed more relaxed. Wilson seemed anxious and allowed himself to look a little angry, which in my opinion just ended up being sort of a visual L for him. And I think because of that, Candace is going to kind of carry public opinion. In other words, Candace's theories are not going to go away after this. She's going to keep going. Andrew Wilson did not successfully crush her opposition to Turning Point USA and her just asking questions about the death of Charlie Kirk. So here's the first part where they kind of exchanged scrutinizing each other's narratives about what happened. So here's the first part where she is digging into Andrew Wilson.
The first reason that I think it's compelling evidence
narrative
is that Tyler Robinson's rifle was found near the crime scene. So I would consider that to be very good evidence. And also the fact of the matter is that I dispute this claim that a 30-06 could not have made this wound. I think that that's absurd. 150 grain Remington core lock absolutely could shatter when it hits the neck of any human being. When you say that there's some steel neck and it's a smaller caliber, you have to make a counter explanation. Why wouldn't a smaller caliber also go through bone?
It could. I didn't say it can't.
Right, exactly. So if that's the case, then ammunition is going to be the critical key here. And if we have frangible ammunition, which we do in this case, a flex tip round, well, I'm sorry, not a flex tip, a soft point round from a 150 grain Remington core lock, that's just a small jacket that goes around the actual lead piece. This thing could have split apart in air for all we know, but definitely upon impact. And we have the medical examiner who confirms this in a summary. And my team can bring that up, the summarization, which means he would have to be a part of some kind of conspiracy as well.
With your expertise, when she gave testimony on the stand, Samantha Carner, that there was dust and there was debris that was found in the gun barrel.
Yep.
And then when we had the person who, and this was, I believe, Caitlin Oliver, who explained painfully about the DNA, the prints.
Well, let's start with a point at a time.
I'm not done. You said something, so I'm going to finish my thought. So I would like you to explain how Tyler Robinson's prints could be the most degraded when she said, actually, you could have DNA on something that you've touched. You could have DNA on something that you've never touched. And to get DNA degradation, they've looked at pieces, items 20, 40 years on that don't have degradation. Yet Tyler Robinson's prints, amongst 5+ other prints, were the most degraded on that weapon.
Yeah, so let's get into all three of the claims. First, with debris. When it comes to debris, firing a rifle doesn't always blow the debris out of the barrel.
Okay, you think there could be debris and dust.
Yeah.
He just fired the weapon.
Sure.
Okay.
Not only that, he left it in a forest. Now, I don't know if you agree with me, but if you leave a rifle in a wooded area, it's also possible that debris could get in that way. But I'm not even sure that that's what the case is. I think it's far more likely that he fired the shot, it just didn't blow all the debris out, and it often doesn't. You'll find this if you take Grandpappy's, dirty rifle, and it's all dusty inside the bore, and you go fire it, you'll often look down the bore and there's still dust.
Okay.
Happens all the time.
Okay, and the prints?
Yeah, so the prints, we don't know all of the details on just yet.
We do. It was excruciatingly long testimony on the prints.
We don't, because they haven't gone to trial, so we don't know. You're saying that it's an impossibility that if his fingerprints are the most degraded.
I'm telling you to explain it. You're the gunsmith.
Well,
so
wait a
explain
second. How would a gunsmith give an analysis on fingerprints or DNA? Do you think that I work in a DNA laboratory
So
with
your
fingerprints?
answer is I don't know. You can just say you don't know.
But
you
I
don't
did.
have to.
But I did.
No, you said so what? So
Yeah,
say,
so-
I don't know. I
but what
actually
would
don't
that-
have an
what
explanation
would that
for that,
prove,
Candace.
though, is my question.
Well, I think that what it would prove is that it is a more viable theory that people who had stronger prints on the gun may have used it more recently. That could demonstrate that somebody took his weapon and put it somewhere. His prints are the most degraded. Somebody else's prints, there's more presence of somebody else's prints, and that could demonstrate that somebody is taking items from his house and putting it into various
But it also
places.
could demonstrate nothing. So the problem that you have here is that this is pure conjecture.
No,
this is not evidence that Tyler Robinson is a patsy. It's only evidence that you have conjectured up that, if it's the case that these are the more degraded prints, then therefore that means must be patsy because dad's fingerprints on gun.
I didn't say must be patsy.
Describe how this actually links in to Robinson being a patsy.
Okay, I just described that for you, so I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, so I'm going to move on from that.
All right, now one of the main things that came to mind in watching this debate for me is that the right wing just has so much more interesting conversations because of stuff like this. Because Candace Owens has been sort of flooding the airwaves with various theories, just literally using her imagination, using shreds of evidence, made up, real, fake, and kind of putting it out there. They now have to have this hours-long conversation, untangling all of these things, and the truth is Andrew Wilson comes up having less vivid imagery and a less vivid narrative to present to the audience. So I think because of that, Candace Owens is able to dominate in this debate a little bit. First of all, because she knows the case very well, and I do think demonstrated that she knows the case better than Wilson does, which was a mistake on his part going into this debate. But also because she has been able to create a very colorful narrative and is able to at least defend it based on her own internal logic that she's using, which often is not very consistent, but it allows her to keep talking and to keep being very confident and never ever looking like she's on the back foot. But then in the case of the fingerprints, her point of saying that the degradation of Tyler Robinson's fingerprints or DNA on the gun appears to be the most degraded of anybody's that they found on the weapon, which could imply that he was not the one who used it most recently. Now that's pretty solid, consistent logic that may not track with what ends up being actually true. Maybe it doesn't matter at all. Maybe Wilson's right that doesn't prove anything. Now what will be interesting is to see if Tyler Robinson's defense goes forward with trying to use things like that and these various points that Candace Owens brings up, because frankly I think a lot of it are the kind of details that Candace Owens could be inflating artificially that won't end up actually mattering all that much to the case. I'm reminded of actually the election denial cases that happened after the 2020 election. You know, they were making these big claims in public about all of these votes that needed to be thrown out because of disparities that were found in this place or drop boxes here and there. But in court, they were always making very razor thin claims about signatures at a certain time or something like that. And always the court even threw those claims out because the claims weren't actually connected to the things that they were asking the court to do. I think Luigi Mangione's case is an example of that as well. He just pled guilty. Seems like that's, the only way they're finding the path forward, when a lot of people out there thought that the government messed this case up or there were these weird disparities in when he was searched and, could the whole thing get thrown out? Maybe it could have, but it seems like his legal representation hasn't ended up going in that direction. Maybe it'll lead to a better outcome for him. We'll find out. But that's kind of what I mean, is that it's hard to take these little details and know what they mean in the context of a court of law. So here's the next part where Wilson tears a little bit more into Candace Owens, and you can also see this is where her defiant debate tactic actually works quite well in her favor, and it is very annoying. I honestly have seen Candace Owens do this countless times over the years, so I'm pretty used to it. Like, I recognize this cadence that she's doing, but I think it works very well in this debate, frankly. So here's Andrew Wilson trying to get to the bottom of what
I'm just going to ask him direct, and I think that as long as they're not loaded, if they're loaded, you should not respond yes or no. But as long as they're not loaded, if I just directly ask them, I'm hoping that you'll just give me a direct answer. So here's the questions that I have.
Wait, before we get into that, I would like to just reply to that. Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, we agreed to debate our claims, and then I agreed publicly that I have no issues having a conversation with you about other things that I've discussed that were outside of the court hearing and things like other evidence that's come across our lab and things that we've been speaking about. But I just do want to make it clear to viewers that for whatever reason you think that you have a right to sort of depose me.
I'm not deposing you. I just want to ask you some questions.
You literally said that I want to be able to question you.
Well, this is a meta conversation.
Right, but okay, so now we're transcending. Like, let's use a word to use a word that you're saying. But this is what you're doing, right?
Okay.
So this part to me feels like a bit of
am I allowed to ask the questions?
I've already said you can ask questions,
Then
but I made it very
them.
clear to you via email and with you in conversation that we should be speaking. This isn't like you get to sit.
I want to ask you some questions.
If you want to depose me, you should join Brigitte Macron's defense team.
This
but you're like, I'm just going to ask questions. Can you answer it? Blah, blah. It's like, I don't know what you're going to ask, and I'm going to answer as I see fit because I'm not.
I get it.
Yeah, okay.
I get it.
Just so we're clear.
Usually in the debate, if something's not loaded, I'm just direct with it.
Because you kept saying I'm Joe Rogan. They have no evidence. They have no evidence. And now you're like, let's move away from the evidence. Let's talk about transcendentals.
Yeah, okay. Anyway. So, direct question, super easy. Was Lance Twiggs DNA on the rifle, as far as you know?
We can't say that for certainty.
As far as you know.
I already answered that in the first part. We can't say that for certainty. I told you the context of which they spoke about those things.
So no, as far as you know.
We can't say that for certainty until we know what other the 5 sets of prints were on.
So that would be no as far as you know.
We can't say that for certainty.
You can say no as far as I know for certain.
We can't say that for certainty.
You can say that for certainty.
if your energy here is going to be like you're my dad and you can tell me how to speak or what I'm supposed to say, you're just going to come up against the wall.
Was the Foreign Legion, do you believe, trying to kill you?
Yes, that's why I reported it to the correct officials in government. That's what I was told, and I handed over that information to Tulsi Gabbard's office.
What's your best piece of evidence for that?
Well, it was
positive evidence.
It was told to me by somebody who is high up in the French government. I passed off that information to Tulsi Gabbard's office. I also passed it off to Trump's office, Donald Trump's office. And that's all I can tell you. I wouldn't be able to probe any evidence because I don't have the power to do that. I'm not the federal government.
Do you have any positive evidence whatsoever that Israel killed Charlie Kirk?
Well, I couldn't say Israel was on the ground and shot and killed Charlie Kirk. I would say that there are various things that we're trying to establish, one being a motive. And since I don't believe that Tyler Robinson and his transferee is a convincing motive because he was fired up about politics, which Lance testified that he never spoke about with him, nor do I believe that he was so into LGBTQ issues, since Lance testified they never spoke about LGBTQ issues, that he stopped and ate at Chick-fil-A, which if you are into LGBTQ issues, wouldn't be your lunch before you go kill Charlie Kirk for LGBTQ issues, because,
but do you have positive evidence?
I'm answering the question as I feel like I want to answer it. Like I said, you don't get to for an hour and a half pepper.
But the question I'm asking is about positive evidence.
I'm telling you that in any case, establishing a motive and and again, I already explained this at the top of the show, but the reason why people find Israel to be an interesting question is because truthfully, Charlie's perspectives were changing on Israel.
Do you actually believe that anybody in TPUSA or Erica Kirk or Erica actually participated, had foreknowledge of, or facilitated the murder of Charlie Kirk?
I'm not going to get myself into a legal pickle here. Everything I've said is on my podcast. I think firmly that if I was the investigating officers, I would seat them all and I would ask questions. I would at this phase. I would.
Okay,
so
what does that
hypothetical,
mean? Does that mean that you do think so?
I think it was not a sufficient investigation into what we know to be true of 80% of homicides. It's usually conducted by someone right?
All right, so Candace Owens is definitely getting evasive on particular points about things that she's said in the past and what she actually thinks happened here and where she's getting the idea of the narrative that she's putting out there. So his central claim throughout this debate that I think he does a pretty good job of proving is that most of Candace's ideas about what did happen are kind of just made up, and she doesn't really have evidence for any of it. And so what she does is she kind of works backwards from these conclusions and is able to tie in many smaller details with what she's saying. An interesting pattern that I'm noticing among a lot of these right-wing influencers, first of all, a lot of times when they are citing their own evidence, they will cite something that somebody said. Oftentimes it'll be like a podcast, like an interview with somebody. You hear this from Joe Rogan all the time, that he will listen to somebody talk, or he will have a conversation himself with somebody, and that will sort of be the citation. And then it also paints this picture of a sort of lesser known network of influencers, one level underneath the public voices that we know, that are actively working to try to influence what these people say on air. And I've noticed that with Joe Rogan, that like he'll mention people sending him stuff or getting him talking about certain subjects. There's been times where Joe Rogan has lied on air because he was just repeating something that somebody else said to him. And so, I think that type of influence is kind of what's happening with Candace Owens, where she has people sending her stuff and probably trying to make themselves seem legit in various ways. And because it really just has to fit into her internal logic of whether she wants to release something, whether it looks legit to her, she can kind of just create this narrative on her own terms. So again, this is what she's been doing for years, and she's good at it, and she's better at it than Andrew Wilson. And so I think ultimately she won in being able to have the more interesting and more thought out things to say about this subject, frankly. Facts tend to be boring, disembodied numbers and whatnot, and documents that don't paint as vivid of a picture as someone using their imagination and using their feelings, what they feel, to come to certain conclusions. So I think Wilson is right that that's what Candace Owens is doing, but unfortunately for him, and this is what the left has been saying for quite a while, that is a much more potently dangerous way of pursuing information, and the right wing participates in that all the time. So speaking of which, just to close this out here, this was a fascinating exchange that they had here about Erica Kirk and how part of the criticism against her is that she shouldn't have taken over Charlie Kirk's business because she's the wife and that's like not her place. And so it's just
and then you
fascinating.
go on to Joe Rogan and you're like soft explaining away why Erica had to take over Charlie's company when they don't have a parent at home. So now you're a feminist icon, like you just go into the headquarters and you just shift all of your perspectives.
That's a bizarre criticism. Like nobody's in the bigger girl boss position than you.
Yeah, I'm actually You're
in the biggest of the girl boss positions. Like you don't have to do this. Okay. You just do this. You could definitely not do it at all and be fine, right? But you still do.
I would say that you are making a comparison that cannot be compared because Erica's husband was just assassinated in front of the world.
Which makes sense why she would take the organization over.
No, it makes sense why you would go home to your kids, just so you know.
Wait a second. That's bizarre.
Yeah, because they don't have a parent. They don't have a parent, and they've just suffered a trauma. You don't go into the office 6 days later.
You want to protect your husband's legacy, right?
No.
And you're trying to find some new normal.
The legacy is his children, not the organization.
It's both.
No,
yes, it is both. It's totally rational and reasonable to believe that it would be both Turning Point USA, that is part of Charlie Kirk's legacy. He worked his whole life for it.
This is why people think she's sus.
And his children. Now, for you, though, to say that anybody's a girl boss, right? That's like the pot calling the kettle black.
That came out of your mouth.
No, that was you. You brought up girl boss.
Girl boss came out of your mouth.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm telling you that you brought up this idea that I'm defending some feminist nonsense. I'm not.
Yeah, so like I said, this is one of the main things that always stands out about Candace Owens to me, is that she will definitely advance this argument about how we should go back to a decades-old version of women in society. Like, women shouldn't have the right to vote. I don't know if she's ever argued for that. Andrew Wilson definitely does. But I remember when she was on Jubilee, she was, essentially couldn't answer the question, do you think women should be able to have credit cards? Do you think we should go back to the 70s when women weren't allowed to have bank accounts? Again, being evasive, not really being able to answer that question. So it is is funny that this comes up in this context. I'd actually never thought of that as a criticism of Erica Kirk. I always thought it was more about like, you know, you're supposed to be mourning, you're supposed to be sad that he's dead. Why are you suddenly going into like warrior mode, but also taking over the company and also trying to be on camera all the time? I thought that was kind of the criticism, but I do think it's funny that the right wing is developing this idea that because she's a woman, she is like less equipped to do that, or like shouldn't want to control the company, but rather should be at home with the kids. Just it leads an interesting question of who would run the organization. You know, it makes perfect sense to me that the wife would step up to do that, but at the same time, I do understand that definitely is questionable that you chose to run the organization instead of be with the children. But that's an interesting example of how the pendulum swings the other way as well, where, you know, this is maybe a glimpse of the controversy we would have seen if the Israel thing didn't become mainstream Republican thought over Charlie Kirk's death, but rather TPUSA was able to control the narrative more. Perhaps this criticism about feminism being some part of the TPUSA program would have become the fundamental critique. So just a fascinating glimpse into the way these right-wingers are thinking. I don't think much productive happened in this debate. I do think Candace advanced her worldview and will continue with that. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see which parts of Candace's theories actually make progress in court. I suspect not that many of them. We'll see how much of a defense Tyler Robinson even mounts. But overall, yeah, I mean, she didn't provide much evidence for anything, certainly not any like positive, affirmative evidence, but it also doesn't matter because a lot of people have made up their minds already, and I think she was the one who was able to come across more confident in this debate.
I'm in the pocket, and they know they can't slow it, can't stop shit. How the game so cold, so toxic, can't drop cause they're in somebody's pocket. For me, that's not it.